Most men are trying too hard, and that's exactly why they keep failing. You've been told to be nice. You've been told to compliment her. You've been told to just be yourself. And yet, you've watched men who do none of those things attract women almost effortlessly. So what's actually going on? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Attraction is not about doing more. It's about understanding psychology. And if you don't understand how attraction actually works in the female mind, you will always feel like you're guessing, always wondering what you did wrong, always confused about why effort alone isn't producing results. Before we go any further, let me be absolutely clear about something. This is not about manipulation. This is not about tricks, mind games, or forcing anyone to feel something they don't feel. Real attraction cannot be forced. You cannot make any woman want you.
But you can become the kind of man that women naturally feel drawn to. And that difference is everything. This is Liza from Secrets Inside the Mind. And today I'm breaking down the complete psychological framework for making women genuinely want you through emotional strength, genuine self-development, and a deep understanding of how female attraction actually works beneath the surface. Engagement TA. Around 1 minute. If you've ever felt confused about why women respond the way they do despite your best efforts, subscribe right now. Because this video reveals the psychological truth behind genuine female desire. Keep watching until the end, because the final psychological principle is the one that separates men who understand attraction from men who keep repeating the same frustrating patterns. Section 1, the foundation, why effort alone never creates attraction. Before we get into the 3 core psychological principles, you need to understand why most men's approach to attraction is fundamentally broken from the start. Because without understanding this foundational reality, everything else I share will feel like just another tactic rather than genuine insight. From a psychological perspective, attraction is not a transaction. Most men operate as if it is. They believe that if they give enough attention, enough gifts, enough compliments, enough emotional energy, a woman will respond with desire. Input equals output. Effort creates reward, but desire doesn't work like a paycheck. You don't accumulate enough good behavior and suddenly cash it in for attraction. And here's the specific psychological reason. Why? Over-investing too early doesn't communicate love or sincerity. It communicates insecurity. And insecurity is one of the most powerful attraction killers in existence. Here's the psychological reality women are responding to without consciously understanding it. When a man overinvests too early, when he's texting constantly, always available, always trying to impress, always seeking her positive reaction, he's sending a subconscious signal. This woman is more valuable than I am. I need to work to qualify for her attention. And that positioning, regardless of how good his intentions are, communicates low self-worth. From a Stoic psychological perspective, this connects to a principle Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively about. The man who has mastered himself carries a fundamentally different energy than the man who is controlled by external circumstances. A man controlled by her reactions, her texts, her moods, her attention, is communicating exactly the opposite of what attraction requires. Here's the core psychological truth that changes everything. Women are not attracted to effort. They are attracted to value, and value is communicated through emotional strength, through genuine self-sufficiency, through standards, and through the kind of calm, grounded confidence that cannot be manufactured through performance alone. It must be built. And the 3 principles I'm about to share are your framework for building it. Section 2. Principle 1. Emotional strength, the real foundation of attraction. The first and most fundamental psychological principle is emotional strength. And most men completely overlook this because they're focused on external strategies, while the most powerful attractive quality is entirely internal. From a psychological standpoint, A woman's first response to a man is not to his achievements, his appearance, or his opening line. It's to his emotional energy, his stability, the psychological impression he creates of being either grounded or reactive. And that impression is communicated through dozens of subtle signals she's reading before you've said anything particularly meaningful. Here's what emotional strength actually is. It means you are steady. You don't panic when things are uncertain. You don't overreact when she takes time to respond. You don't fall apart when she disagrees with you. Your emotional baseline doesn't rise and fall based on her behavior. You stay centered. You stay in control of yourself. And that self-control is psychologically powerful in a way that almost nothing else can replicate. Here's why. Attraction grows where there is emotional safety. When a woman feels that you are genuinely grounded, that your character is predictable even if your behavior is not, her nervous system relaxes in your presence. And when her nervous system relaxes, trust begins to build. And trust is the foundation from which genuine attraction grows and sustains itself. Most men sabotage this without realizing what they're doing. They meet a woman they like, and their emotions immediately take over. They overtext, they overexplain, they overanalyze every message she sends. They start imagining futures after 2 conversations, and when she pulls back even slightly, they panic. That panic leaks through, not always in words, but in energy, in behavior, in the subtle shift she feels even if she can't articulate it. Here's the critical psychological reality. Women are extraordinarily perceptive to emotional shifts. If your mood depends on her attention, she will sense it. And the moment she feels responsible for stabilizing your emotional state, the moment she realizes that her warmth or coldness directly determines your psychological equilibrium, attraction weakens. Because she doesn't want to parent you emotionally. She wants to feel led emotionally, guided by someone solid enough to provide stability rather than require it. This is where many men confuse vulnerability with emotional dumping. There's a fundamental psychological difference between the two. Vulnerability is emotional strength under control. Sharing something genuine at the right moment with the right person at the right depth of connection. Emotional dumping is emotional chaos seeking external management. One creates intimacy, the other creates burden. Here's what emotional strength looks like in real behavioral terms. She cancels plans without much explanation. Instead of passive-aggressive withdrawal or anxious chasing for reassurance, you respond calmly, "No problem, let's find another time," and continue with your day. She takes several hours to reply to a message. Instead of double texting or spiraling into analysis, you assume she's busy and engage with your own life. She disagrees with your opinion. Instead of immediately softening your position to avoid conflict, you hold your perspective calmly and respectfully. Each of these responses communicates the same psychological message. My emotional state is self-generated. It doesn't require your management or your constant attention to remain stable. And that stability is deeply attractive because it's genuinely rare. From a practical standpoint, emotional strength is not something you can perform long-term if it isn't genuinely built, which means the work is real. Physical discipline improves emotional regulation at a neurological level. Keeping promises to yourself builds genuine self-trust. Handling rejection and uncertainty with maturity rather than reactivity builds psychological resilience. Every time you choose to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively, you strengthen your emotional foundation. Remember this clearly. Emotional strength provides the psychological safety that makes attraction possible.
Without it, nothing else you do will generate the sustained desire you're looking for. If you're recognizing your own patterns in what I'm describing, comment below right now. Tell me which of these behaviors you've been repeating without realizing the psychological damage it creates. Like this video and subscribe, because the next 2 principles go even deeper into the specific psychology of female attraction. The second psychological principle is one that makes a lot of men uncomfortable. The more available you are, the less attractive you often become. And before you dismiss this, understand the psychology behind it, because it's not about playing games. It's about something far more fundamental. From a psychological standpoint, human beings assign value based on scarcity and effort. When something is rare, we value it.
When something is unlimited and always accessible, we stop noticing it. This is not a dating principle specifically. It's a foundational psychological reality about how the human brain assigns importance. Applied to dating, this means when your time is always available, it doesn't feel valuable. When your attention is automatic and unconditional, it doesn't feel earned. And when something feels automatic, it doesn't feel exciting. Because excitement requires some element of tension, some degree of uncertainty about what comes next. But here's the critical psychological distinction that most men miss. This is not about manufacturing false scarcity by pretending to be busy or deliberately delaying replies as a tactic. That's performance and it's detectable. And what actually works psychologically is genuine scarcity, having a life so full and purposeful that your time is legitimately valuable and your availability is legitimately conditional. Ask yourself honestly right now, do you have goals you're actively building toward? Do you have friendships that provide real social connection? Do you have physical disciplines that structure your days and develop your body and mind? Do you have creative or professional pursuits that genuinely engage your attention? If the honest answer is weak, then, naturally, without any manipulation or game playing, dating will become your primary source of excitement, and that dependency will leak through in everything, in how quickly you respond, in how easily you rearrange your schedule, in how much you invest before she's demonstrated equivalent investment. When a man genuinely has a full life, something shifts in his psychological presence. He's not rushing to secure her commitment because his life is already satisfying. He's not trying to lock things down quickly because his emotional well-being doesn't depend on any single romantic outcome. He enjoys the interaction because he's already fulfilled outside of it. That calm abundance is what creates genuine attraction rather than the anxious pursuit that repels it. The other critical element of this principle is standards. And here's where many men make a psychologically costly mistake. They lower their standards the moment they're attracted to someone. They ignore red flags. They accept disrespect. They tolerate inconsistency. They overlook behavior that would immediately concern them in any other context because they're afraid of losing the opportunity. But here's the psychological impact of tolerating poor behavior. You silently communicate that you don't believe you can do better. And whether you ever say that explicitly, she feels it. Standards are not about arrogance. They're the behavioral expression of genuine self-respect. When you calmly maintain your standards, when you don't chase harder after she cancels without apology, when you don't laugh off genuine disrespect, when you pull back calmly when she shows consistently low investment, you communicate something psychologically powerful. You communicate that your attention is genuinely valuable and not freely given to someone who hasn't demonstrated they value it. That restraint creates respect, and respect is the foundation from which sustained attraction develops. Here's the psychological principle about mutual investment that most men never fully internalize. Attraction grows when both people are investing. When only one person is consistently initiating, planning, pursuing, and emotionally over-investing, the dynamic becomes imbalanced. And imbalance, regardless of which direction it runs, creates psychological discomfort that gradually erodes attraction. If she's not investing, stepping back is not manipulation. It's alignment. You want someone who genuinely chooses you, not someone you convince to tolerate your presence. And that requires the emotional discipline to allow space for her genuine investment rather than filling every gap with more effort of your own. Section 4. Principle 3. Emotional attraction over logic. Stop trying to convince her. The third psychological principle is the one that challenges men most directly because it requires abandoning an approach most men have used their entire lives. Stop trying to convince her to be attracted to you. From a psychological standpoint, many men approach attraction as if it's a logical argument they need to win. If they explain their intentions clearly enough, highlight their stability and loyalty, demonstrate their achievements, and build a compelling case for why they'd be a great partner, she'll rationally conclude that attraction is warranted. But attraction is not a conclusion. It's a feeling. And feelings are not generated by logical arguments. They're generated by emotional experiences. You cannot negotiate desire. You cannot build a sufficient case for it. And the attempt to do so, the over-explaining, the credential listing, the constant reassurance of your own worthiness is itself one of the most powerful dampeners of genuine attraction. Here's the uncomfortable psychological criticism that most men need to hear. Many men are emotionally present in conversations, but boring in emotional energy. They play it too safe. They avoid any tension because tension feels risky. They avoid light teasing because it might not land perfectly. They avoid strong eye contact because it feels too direct. They filter everything they say through the question, will this make her like me? And that filtering, that constant performance management, removes the authentic unpredictability that creates genuine emotional spark. When you agree with everything she says, change your position the moment you sense her disagreement and seek approval with every significant statement, you don't look considerate. You look psychologically unsure of yourself. And women don't want a mirror reflecting their own opinions back at them. They want a man with his own grounded perspective who can hold his position calmly when challenged. That contrast between your perspective and hers creates a specific psychological experience, energy, and energy creates spark. Not through conflict or aggression, but through the simple reality of two distinct personalities with genuine views engaging authentically, rather than one constantly accommodating the other. Here's another critical psychological dimension of this principle: emotional presence. When you're with her, are you actually present in the interaction, engaged with her, reading the moment, responding to what's actually happening? Or are you trapped in your own internal commentary? Is she impressed? Does she like me? What should I say next? Did that land well? When you're inside your head managing your own performance, you're not actually in the conversation. And she feels that disconnection even if she can't articulate what's missing. Attraction grows in genuine present moment engagement, not in the carefully managed performance of someone trying to create the right impression. Strong eye contact, relaxed posture, speaking at a measured pace, responding to what she actually said rather than what you prepared. These behavioral signals communicate confidence more powerfully than anything you could say about your achievements or intentions. Here's a specific psychological pattern worth examining in your own behavior. Many men over-reveal too quickly. They share their entire story, their history, their goals, their intentions, their feelings in the first few conversations because it feels honest and genuine. But psychologically, mystery fuels curiosity. When you reveal everything immediately, you remove the experience of discovery. You eliminate the space where her imagination would naturally engage with who you are. Pacing your self-revelation is not manipulation. It's the natural rhythm of genuine connection developing over time. Let her discover you in layers. Let her curiosity about you be something that grows rather than something that's immediately satisfied and therefore extinguished. Here's the final psychological reality about this principle. You cannot push your way into someone's genuine desire. The more you press for attraction before it's naturally developed, the more resistance you create. The man who is comfortable with the natural pace of connection, who doesn't panic about competition, doesn't rush toward exclusivity before emotional depth is established, doesn't need immediate reassurance of her interest, communicates a specific psychological quality: confidence in his own desirability without requiring her constant confirmation of it. That quality is psychologically rare.
And rarity creates attraction. If these psychological principles are giving you genuine clarity about patterns you've been repeating, comment below. Tell me which principle is most challenging for you to embody. Like this video and subscribe, because the final section brings everything together into the psychological shift that changes everything. Now that we've covered all 3 psychological principles, I want to address something that most content about attraction never honestly confronts: the gap between understanding these principles intellectually and actually embodying them in your behavior. From a psychological standpoint, most men who consume content about attraction understand the concepts clearly. They know they shouldn't overtext. They know they should maintain standards. They know emotional strength is important. They can articulate these principles accurately.
And then they meet a woman they're genuinely attracted to, and every principle evaporates in the heat of that specific emotional investment. Why? Because the principles haven't been built into their actual character yet. They're still operating as external strategies to apply rather than internal qualities that express themselves naturally. And that distinction matters enormously because women can feel the difference between a man performing emotional strength and a man who is genuinely grounded. Here's the psychological work that bridges this gap: building a life that makes emotional strength, genuine scarcity, and authentic presence natural rather than effortful. When your days are structured around disciplines that genuinely develop you, physical training that builds real confidence, professional or creative work that provides real direction, friendships that provide real social sustenance, the attractive qualities we've been discussing become the natural expression of who you actually are, rather than a mask you're trying to hold in place. A man who trains consistently doesn't have to perform discipline. It's visible in how he carries himself. A man with genuine professional direction doesn't have to explain his ambition. It's present in his energy and his conversation. A man with real friendships and a social life doesn't have to manufacture scarcity. He genuinely has other things competing for his attention. This is the psychological shift from trying to create attraction to simply being someone that attraction naturally responds to. And it's the shift that separates men who consistently struggle with dating despite understanding the theory from men who attract women almost effortlessly without trying. From a Stoic psychological perspective, Epictetus captured this principle precisely. Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. Stop explaining to women how emotionally strong you are. Stop highlighting your standards in conversation. Stop demonstrating your ambition through lengthy descriptions of your goals. Let your actual presence, your actual energy, your actual life be the demonstration. When you embody these qualities rather than performing them, something powerful happens. You stop being a man who's working hard to create a particular impression. You start being a man whose presence creates its own impression effortlessly. And that effortlessness, that calm, grounded, purposeful way of existing in the world is one of the most psychologically attractive qualities a man can possess. Section 6, the honest challenge, where most men actually need to start. Let me end with the psychological honesty that most men find genuinely uncomfortable but genuinely necessary. If you've been struggling with attraction consistently, if you keep having the same frustrating experiences, the honest question is not, what are women doing wrong? It's, where am I reactive? Where am I undisciplined? Where am I seeking validation I should be generating internally? Those questions require humility. And humility is difficult because it's easier to protect your ego with external explanations than to honestly examine where your own psychology is creating the outcomes you're experiencing. Here's the uncomfortable psychological mirror this video is holding up. Not every man who struggles with attraction is struggling because the world is unfair or because women are impossible to understand. Many are struggling because they haven't yet done the internal work that makes genuine attraction natural. Because emotional strength hasn't been built. Because a genuinely full life hasn't been developed. Because the capacity to create emotional experience rather than logical argument hasn't been practiced. And here's the most direct psychological statement I can make about all of this. If you need a woman's attention to feel valuable, you are not yet ready to attract the kind of relationship you actually want. That's not harsh. It's honest. Because the foundation of everything attractive is self-sufficiency. The man who already knows his own worth, who already finds his life genuinely engaging, who already experiences genuine satisfaction from his disciplines and his direction, that man doesn't communicate desperation, he communicates abundance. And abundance is the psychological foundation of everything genuinely attractive. Here's the final psychological insight that ties all three principles together. Attraction is not something you demand or engineer or argue your way into.
It is something you embody. When you genuinely embody emotional strength, when your life is genuinely full and purposeful, when you create genuine emotional experiences rather than logical arguments for your own worthiness, attraction stops feeling complicated. It starts feeling natural. And that transformation from a man chasing validation to a man whose presence is genuinely valuable doesn't start with her. It starts with you. If this video gave you genuine psychological clarity, comment below. Be honest about where you've been going wrong. Tell me which of the three principles you're going to start developing first. Your honesty in the comments might be exactly what another man reading needs to hear right now. Like this video if it shifted how you understand female attraction psychology.
Share it with a man who needs this perspective, and subscribe to Secrets Inside the Mind, because understanding the real psychology of attraction, what actually generates desire, what actually creates genuine connection, is the foundation that changes everything about how you show up in your relationships and in your life. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.